Hello, welcome to DevCami number 138, which is 2 to the power of so, but meanwhile, my name is Swee Meng, and we have Tristan. Or is it just me that everything is broken?
Yeah, I think it's, yeah. So, do you want me to do the intro? Because I didn't hear anything that you were saying.
Disable one connection. Okay.
Yeah, I'll do the intro. Sorry. So, welcome to DevCami number 128.
Okay,
And
take over for now.
this is Swee Meng, and we are doing, I'm Tristan, and we're doing dev setup on Windows. I'm not sure what's up on Swee Meng's side. I think he's having some technical problems. His window is frozen. Swee Meng, if you're still here, if you can take a look at YouTube, you can see how you look like. It's really blocky, and you keep on jumping around. But I guess you can start sharing your screen. I'm not sure how. Do you have a lot? You mentioned that you have a slowdown of your computer. Maybe you can turn off a lot of your background processes. This is Windows, right? You're using Windows right now, so it's not as good in terms of memory management as Linux, as what we're used to. At least in Linux or Mac, we can just kill processes. But yep, I think you're okay now, Swee Meng.
Okay. So I need to.
Yep. Oh, now he froze again. I'm not sure. Okay, well, I will open our Meetup page, and I'm going to share the screen. Okay, so let's make this a bit larger. As usual, there's not a lot of things happening this week. I guess, well, we did have, okay. Well, I'm also on Windows, and so, of course, as usual, Windows doesn't care what you're trying to do. It will try to do an update of Windows. But, so here's the Meetups page. We don't have anything happening. We did have Ruby Tuesday last Tuesday, but nothing in the near future. So it's a bleak day. We'll take a look at the Buzz Corner for today. Again, if you want to take a look at the notes for today's podcast, you can always go to devcami.com, and on the podcast link, you'll see the show notes and the Buzz Corner for this. Unfortunately, I did not review any of these, so we'll have to take a look at what's happening here. Plan 9. Plan 9 is a really, like, I remember Plan 9 as one of the older operating systems from before. Swee Meng, are you okay now?
Testing.
Yep, all good. Perfect.
Okay, so Plan 9 is actually one of the last operating system by the Unix trio. So Ken Thompson, Dennis Ritchie, and of course, then a few of the more well-known ones are actually in this project. This is more Unix than Unix. So they bring a few of big idea. So one of the things they bring is the idea of file networks as a file system. So you can imagine. So in this operating system, you can literally treat a network as a file. You just pipe your way through the network, which is actually a very interesting idea. So
was that concept the inspiration for Unix? Because Unix, everything is a file, right? Did Plan 9 start
is
that thing?
iteration of Unix. Plan 9 are created in the 90s, late 80s, 90s. So in the 80s, there is already extension of file system for the virtual file system and the /proc. So those exist, and those are not exactly a file, yet it's a file. It's a file in a way that it's a file interface by the access system. So they extended to actually do networking. So the big idea for that is so that so that you can actually, as I say, pipe files over and make it will make networking seamless, make it a very perfect distributed operating system. Unfortunately, because it's in the 90s, many operating systems outshine them, and it kind of abandoned for a while. It was only recently that turned it into an open source project, which is good because a lot of things, quite a few things that is not in modern operating system actually. As I say, my favorite idea, networking as a file system. So that's one of those things that that didn't.
So, and what is this news about now?
They release it as
It's
open source.
Plan 9. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Previously,
Another
they
operating
released the
system.
image. Yeah. So, but it's a bit late because now they're being outshined by all the commercial operating system. Commercial operating
we'll see.
system. Yes.
We'll see if it gets like a lot of support from the processors from the computer like ARM or Intel. Then see. How about this one?
The next one, this is actually there's an outage not recently, quite recently by on Azure. It's actually due to the DNS servers. DNS servers, if you do it as a scale, it can be very painful because the behavior of a DNS server is the propagate. So every time you change your TTL, then your TTL will be propagated to a caching DNS server that have the TTL and all the way up. So as you and there'll be multiple. So DNS server can easily if you do it badly, you can overrun the network. So which is why sometimes you should not put a low TTL because you do not want to send change too fast. Especially when you know that certain content, certain type of site don't change that much, don't bother. It's just one of those things lah. You don't see it often if you don't run your own DNS server. I used to do that and caused a problem before, but it's just one of those things lah.
So, but I personally never had a problem with this one. So I guess it's really just for the Azure people, whoever uses Azure.
Yes. If you have to run your own DNS server, it will cost that. But
how about this one?
It's about time, but IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, finally deprecated TLS 1.0 and 1.1. There's newer one. You should not use this now. So there's TLS 1.3 already, I believe. Yeah, it's
1.3 is the latest, I think. 1.2 is current. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you should use the newer one because they plan to deprecate for a while. This make it official. Your browser should really do your job for you already. Your networking, your operating systems should already handle that.
Well, only if your operating system is still currently supported. The thing is, many, like for example, especially on like own hardware, like small hardware, like routers, for example, that don't have auto-update mechanisms that rely, or like, I don't know, car dashboards that has internet connection. So that's, and then of course, like the car manufacturer doesn't support it anymore.
Your car may not be a problem, but if you use things like your ESP, your Sonos, that might be a problem. Something to think about. If you're on your router, just check if your router have your latest firmware. So once the firmware it most probably going to help you solve that. If you don't, well, I'm so sorry. I suggest you change it, but that's how it goes. The chances is if you're on your router, it should be fine. Internet of Things device more interesting, but not within our controller. So shall we move on to the next one?
Yes. Wow, this is really small. What is this?
Okay, so not too long ago, in fact, for the past few years, Oracle had been suing Google on the use of Java API, not the implementation, for Android. So this is interesting because they're not suing Google for the implementation because that API is the implementation is independent. They do not actually use OpenJDK, and they do not actually take the source code from Sun and whatnot. What they're suing is the API for Java. So meaning which raised the question: can you copyright and API
API.
API signature, right? So
Mhm.
the Supreme Court says no, and then on the side of Google, they decided no, you can't. And you should only do for on implementation.
Well, it's not that you can't copyright it; it's copyrightable. But what Google did is deemed fair use.
Yes, correct.
So it's not that it's not copyrightable. So I've been actually following this for a long time, and there was this site called
Grok,
grocklaw.net
you should
like
join.
long ago.
Mhm.
Pamela Jones, the author of
Yeah.
Grocklaw, stopped blogging about it in 2013, but I've been following it like since like a long time ago. So if you want to see the history of this case from like from the very beginning, this person had all of the what do you call this? All of the documents like since it was like since 2003.
Yep.
Since SEO days.
Yes.
Because SEO like in the beginning it was the
That's the biggest case.
Yeah, the SEO thing, and then this like I think this was like one of the similar copyright cases
SEO is a bit
that
more
reminded me
serious.
of this. Mm-hmm.
SEO is a bit more serious in the way that they claim that they bring in the source code during the Unix over. This one is only the API signature.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Again, lots of things happening in legal terms that you'd think software developers are not are immune from legal stuff, but actually, as software developers, you need to know about these things.
Correct. I think that's about the biggest news we have for the past few days, actually. So let's start with this.
Are you ready for sharing? Are you okay?
I hope I have. Let's start with the backstory. So recently, I got a laptop. Everybody really know it's a ThinkPad. Everybody already know. Thanks to my current workplace, which if you find me on LinkedIn, you know where I work now. There's an incentive to help developers get laptops. So I decided to keep the Windows on this machine because, the main reason I get this machine is this particular machine, the X13 with AMD and all that. Despite it's on the higher end, but it's the only machine that can arrive within 1 week plus, right? So as a result, I get this with Windows Pro, it's actually very expensive, but I get it anyway. So I decided to keep the Windows on it, which is weird, but because people knows me as a Unix person, it's just one of the things that I do. So one of the things I have to do, because this is a work machine, even though I actually own it, is
the company owns it, but you are the primary user, I would say.
No. In this case, I do own it.
Oh, it's actually yours. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, I typed hello wrongly. So one of the first things I discovered on Windows is you can set up WSL. That's the first thing, right? In fact, that's the first thing I do actually. So I hope to actually set up WSL. I don't remember how do I set it up. It's not hard if you find it. Enable WSL Pro.
Yeah. Sorry, John is asking in the DevCami Slack chat, what is from outer space? Is it from outer space? What is
Plan 9 from outer space is a bad science fiction name that they adopt for Plan 9.
So not this one. Plan 9 was probably like taken from Plan 9 from outer space.
Correct.
But it's not the Plan 9 from outer space thing. Okay.
Yeah, it's not.
Interesting trivia there.
Yes.
Yeah. So are you sharing your screen? You want to?
I don't remember the settings. Okay. Settings. Yep. App and features. Okay, found you. Okay, so let's show how do I actually enable this, which is what I said is very easy. Settings. But the thing is, a lot of people that think that why don't I just use a Mac? It's just that that's all. There is no particular reason. I mean, I like to play game and that's it. Oh, it's actually under related setting. I need to set up. Here you are. Program and features. Right. Then I need to turn on Windows features on and off. Then you can get all sort of thing down here. So for developers within our circle, very likely what you want to do is you want to set up at minimum. Where is it? Can you see the Windows feature window?
Yeah. No.
Okay, let me
where's
switch
the Windows feature?
Yeah, you need to go here, then you go program features, then all that. Then let me show the full Windows. I may have to show the full Windows. Share screen, entire screen.
So you're installing WSL because you want to set up your development machine.
Correct.
And you're a Unix, mostly Unix developer. Most of the tools that you use are in Unix.
Yes, correct. So, okay, now you see the full Windows program features. So this is the one problem that I don't like about Windows, but it is something that they get from legacy days. Then you got this one. This one, do you see it? It's a bit small, but it's on the bottom for under program features, turn on Windows features and all that. So the first thing is you have to set up Windows Subsystem for Linux. And you automatically get Linux tools, so which is actually very cool. Then the second thing I discovered is nowadays you don't use Windows, I use Windows Terminal.
Yeah, Windows Terminal is quite good.
Yes, I actually likes it. So once you have that, but once you have this, second thing you should make sure you have is is actually the Windows Terminal. The reason is once you set up all the necessary stuff, you can set up you can run your Unix shell, your Linux shell here. But I'm going too fast. The second thing you should go to, here's the weird thing. Here's the very weird stuff. It's called the store, Microsoft Store. You install your Ubuntu from Windows Store. That's the second thing. Then you can, once you get that, then you have the Windows shell. So once you have that, you have okay-ish. You get okay-ish Windows Linux environment.
Which is this is actual Ubuntu, right?
Yeah, this actual Ubuntu, and what they do is, what they actually do is they had a virtual machine. Without Hyper-V. Hyper-V, as you see just now, is not enabled yet. So it's still a virtual machine, highly optimized, with a lot of drivers and magic to make things more transparent, actually. Transparent. Once you have that, and how they integrate, another way to integrate is notice the mount point, ls/mntc. So notice that the actual mount C, that's your Windows, that is actually your Windows. This, as you can see, you can't see everything because Windows permission is a bit weird, but you can. That's primarily how you do your integration. So meaning, what you may want to do is you may use your Explorer. You may use your Explorer to put your file, but you can use your Linux environment to do your thing. So that to me is a bit interesting. So cover Linux and all that. The third thing we should actually know about Windows that is this you can use chocolate tea. Chocolate tea. Do people know what is chocolate tea? Should I explain?
Up to you.
So chocolate tea is the Windows version of your package manager. So if you're on Mac, you may use Homebrew. On Windows, you're likely to use chocolate key. So it'll be the equivalent, and chances is you can use choco install help. I don't remember the command line. dash. So you get all your this, but I need to find the search command. Da, 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 da. So let me go through what you have for option. So chances you get your Choco upgrade, your package, then you can put your source and whatnot. So this is how you install your things on Windows. You can still use the traditional way, but if you want to use command line and want to set up your script, the option is there, and you should start doing this now actually. So it's still a different command, but it will be something. But the mindset you bring from Linux should be the same now. In fact, if you go to place like, let me open a new window. Let me open a new window so that I don't go crazy. I will choose my favorite one, DBvar. DBvar. La la la. La la la. So notice you have this command. So you some of these packages already have that. You need to find out to use, but there's a catch. The big catch is you need to set up your. I do not know the equivalent of sudo command on Windows. That's my fault actually, but you need to use this to actually do your installation because.
I don't think you do sudo on command line. You need to run a terminal with admin privileges.
That's how I do
it. I don't think. Well, there is sudo equivalence, but it doesn't do the sudo that, because Windows doesn't really do multi-user that well.
Yep.
So what it actually does is it runs it in an elevated command line process.
Correct. So yeah. So the third thing you should start on the Windows development now is terminal, set up your Linux environment, then start using Chocolatey. So and often chances is you may find a package already. You can already install Python on it and all that, which funnily I don't, because the next one is Python. There is multiple way for you to install Python on your system. Windows Store have it. Of course, you can also do things like Choco install Python. This should work. Let me do my terminal. Then I need to go down to option. Run as terminal. Yes. Choco install Python. Let's see whether that. Please don't overwrite. Okay. This is going to bite me. Cancel. But you get the idea, right? You get the idea. You can do the equivalent thing now. Let me make sure I don't overwrite my Python version. Okay, it's there. Control Z. Yeah. Python, Chocolatey. What else should I cover? What else do I need to?
I think I think installation is fine. Like, how's the general workflow? Like, you're doing website development, right? So you're dealing with ports, sockets, all of these things. How does that work?
So here's the funny thing, right? Not funny, but rather interesting. Let me turn on now. Again, this is a multi-screen thing, so I'm so sorry that I'm confusing everyone. So the first thing is notice the Unix shell. So sudo service Postgresql start. So this on the Linux machine. Haha, bite me. That's a password. So now it's starting. For some reason, they don't start by default. I'm going to start an app called DBvar, just because. So this, just so you know, this is a Windows application to look at your database.
What's the name? What's the name of this? DBvar.
DBvar. It's called the Beaver. Close. So notice that I already set up the port localhost 54321, but I don't have Postgresql on Windows. It's on Linux. So it's seamless. The point is, these things are seamless. So the Windows machine can seamlessly connect to your environment, to your Linux environment by default. And here's the coolest part. The other thing that you may want concern. So I installed Docker on Windows, right? But they have default WSL integration, meaning what it means is it will actually so when you run Docker, you still run Docker that you install on Windows, but they have some form of integration. I believe it might be something over networking. It's a local networking thing. So when you start Docker, you actually Docker engine, you had a port to expose to. So your Windows client, that will instead of a client on your WSL, then the client will actually talk to your Docker environment setup and all that. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So that's one. Another thing is, okay, this work thing. So pretend that. So I tend to work. I still work in a Linux environment, and often what I do is I actually do my all the command line that works well is actually on Linux, unfortunately. So for example, I use things like poetry. This only works well on Linux environment. On Windows environment, it's a bit weird. I can't get poetry to work. According to what I find online, it may be the problem, the version of Python I install. So I have a tendency to do everything within the Linux environment. So even things like serverless command. Let me switch out serverless. Yeah, even though there's serverless.exe, but they can run serverless here. So I have tendency. Don't deploy. I do. Offline. Let's do offline. I know it will. This will have error. So I would. So in this case, the command line thing I would tend to run on Linux because that's the best integration. But if you want to do the client testing and all that, everything is on Windows just because it's just that. So for example, let's say you use PyCharm. I won't be doing this now because it's for some reason, it's a bit heavy on the environment. What you do is you will things like your database connection, still on Windows, but you connect to your Linux machine. Then your Python environment, your Python interpreter that actually search within the Linux environment and then do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a catch. The catch here is because the way I use Python development is a bit convoluted, meaning I use Poetry to manage the package. Then I use a lot of things, and Poetry will spawn their own virtual environment with their own Python shell. So PyCharm on Windows had to dig very deep to get the packages. As a result, the Poetry integration doesn't work as well. But on the other hand, I tend to switch between command line and IDE anyway, so it's still fine. Because things like autocomplete, searching the libraries that we already installed and all that works very well. Even though it looks convoluted, but yeah, so it's not too bad. Yeah,
Nicholas is asking about Heidi SQL. If you tried that, and how is it different from DBvar?
I never tried that before, so I can't give comment. So Anything else I forget about Windows environment? Oh yeah,
No, I think
make sure you handle your line feed properly. Meaning, on Windows, a lot of things is still on /r/n carriage return, then new line. On Unix, you don't need to set it up properly. Some of those caveats. PyCharm by default based on your operating system. So if you install a Windows, you have actually tendency to set up as carriage return the new line. But if you set up on Linux, you need to make sure that you set it up properly. One of those caveats. DBvar actually support NoSQL, but it's a commercial thing, so you may have to pay for the subscription.
Would you like me to show how I do development on Windows
Please.
as well?
Let's compare.
So I'm the same on the same similar situation as Swee Meng. I'm Linux. Most of the tools that I use are on Linux. Ruby does not have a very good Windows VM and interpreter, so most of the development is usually run on most of the deployments are usually done on a Linux machine, and some development can be done in Mac. I think I've talked about the development on M1 before. It's not very fun right now, but things are always improving. And then, of course, like the Intel Macs are favorite among the developers. And of course, you have Windows developers as well, but you don't do Windows development. And this is how I do it. So I kind of cheat a bit. As you can see, I actually run it in a VM. So I have the whole Ubuntu system here, and my desktop, my client is basically the Windows system. But before that, so similar to what Swee Meng was talking about. So before we actually go to the VM, right? Swee Meng uses Choco, so I think there's a package manager for Windows. I personally use Scoop. So Scoop is like the same thing. You can list what you have. So in this case, I have 7-zip, Bitwarden, etc. I heard about DBvar, right? And so it's actually here, search DBvar. And if I'm actually interested, for example, in an application, I try to see if it's in Scoop first before I go searching and downloading and installing itself. So if you want to install DBvar, I actually haven't tried this before. So let's see, install DBvar. And what it's gonna do is it will update. Like it's similar if you've done Debian and the likes. It's similar to apt-get update and apt-get install something. So it looks like this is the inspiration for that. So it updates and then it downloads and it automatically installs and it clicks for all of the boxes for you. So later on it is going to install, but that's generally how it is. So I prefer Scoop over Choco. I used to use Choco, but I forgot why I switched. I just generally prefer Scoop. I forgot why, but I've always been using Scoop now, and that's just how I use things. So here I have my Ubuntu machine, and I actually this is my like work directory, etc. So you'll see I have my my bash ES1 prompt, and everything else is there. So I actually just use this. I could have gotten away with just the server install without the graphical user interface, but sometimes I just like to like try out, let's say, the website that I'm developing on in a different operating system. So I have Windows and then I have a Mac machine, and then if I needed to quickly take a look at it on a Linux machine, then I can fire up Firefox for this. But actually this is just mostly minimized or like in a different desktop, because I can actually just I can go and move it to a different desktop, and then it's just out of sight, out of mind, right?
Yep.
And the difference is that if you take a look at my settings, instead of, so I set this up as a bridge network instead of a NAT, and that allows me to set a different IP address for the virtual machine. So it will actually get the DHCP address from. I can set it to have a different DHCP address from the router, or in this case, what I did is I set up a fixed IP for this, because in the next one, so most of the development again is on Windows. So we'll see DBvar is installed. Let's see if it's actually working. DBvar. Well, I have to do it here because you won't see it. DBvar, so it's already installed. Everything is there. Unfortunately, you're not seeing it because the splash screen happened on a different window. Sorry, on a different screen that I'm not sharing. But yeah, it says Community Free Universal Database Manager. I think, I'm not sure if Nicola's suggestion is here. ID SQL. Yeah, so yeah, it just brought up things, right? Yes, sure, sample database. All right, there you go. Yeah, so that's the package installer. Do not ask me again. Yeah, so it looks like HiDSQL is there, and if you want to get information about the package, HiDSQL, you can see, yeah, it's a GPL v2. What is DBvar?
I think that's MIT. It's one of those more commercial type.
Yeah, it's Apache license. So basically, you know about the package. Like, where is it going to be downloaded from? No, it doesn't show it, but it does show things like the binaries, like all of these things. Yeah, so that I just prefer that. So in actual development, I use VSCode. Yeah, sorry. I think this is going. There is an update for VSCode, but we'll see. We'll see if it pops up. But what I use mostly for VSCode is something called Remote. So it's Control Shift P or Command Shift P if you're on Mac, and then connect to host, and you'll see that. Where's my? It's not here anymore because I set it up. You'll see here, it's on 192.168.0.12. And so what it's doing is it's actually using something called Remote VSCode.
Yeah.
It's an extension. Let me know if it's too small.
I think it can be a bit bigger though, if possible.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's a Remote VSCode, Remote SSH. And what it does is, you'll see I have the same, you noticed I have the same prompt from that, because this is actually SSH and it's doing SSH forwarding. So you showed me that you were running Docker on WSL, right? Since this is a Ubuntu machine, I can run all of my Docker stuff as well here. So just run the Docker compose up. Oh, sorry, what happened?
Because actually, you want to have first class support for WSL, VS Code will be better because it's the same idea actually. It's mostly the same idea.
So what I like about VSCode Remote is that, let me just turn off the side thing, is that if, for example, I run Rails, right?
Yeah.
And you'll see that so this is running in a VM. And it's going to run under port 3000, well, in this case, port 8080. And because it's running under the VM, you need to like know the IP address of those things. It's not like localhost development. But what I like about VS Code is what it does is it will actually forward the port for you. And so let me see, where is it? No, these are the extensions. Is it? Yeah, so it automatically forwards the port. So you'll see here. So it was in the terminal, right? On the ports, it forwards 3000, 8080, 8443 because these were opened, and this one I always used. This one was auto forwarded. I didn't configure this before, but because I run, so this one I set it up so that it runs a self-signed certificate for SSL stuff that I need to test on local. It runs it 8443, and so it automatically forwards that. And I don't have to do anything. And so what I can do is I can run, like if I'm developing the website, or the web app, I can just do localhost colon 8080, and then it will like run it as if it was running on the local machine because of through SSH forwarding. You can do this without VS Code. You do an SSH forward basically, but it's just that VS Code automates the whole thing.
Yes.
And you have like your Docker stuff as well there.
Because without it, you would do a lot of stuff like, okay, what we used to do traditionally before all this convenience is it partly automated by VirtualBox, for example. You will set up your Samba on your machine, and they will have a shared directory. Then you work on the directory. Then you have your tools of choice to SSH over your virtual machine and do your things. So nowadays development is awesome in the way that you have a lot of automation to make things done, and it's not expensive actually.
Yeah. So what? So I'll go back to Scoop because VS Code says there's an update. So I don't actually update on the on VS Code. I don't want to download, install, click. What I can just do, I just do a Scoop update VS Code, and then it will like download the latest version of that. And that's it. And so VS Code Remote is good because it tries to make things seamless. So that means it also indexes the files for you. So you have your control P, you have your fuzzy search. You can run like language servers, so like IntelliSense like stuff. So for example, if you need documentation for a particular thing, it will actually install it on the remote system. And so what it means is that since I'm doing things on the VM as through SSH, that's just another machine from VS Code point of view. That means if I am, for example, deploying to a Linode server, I can SSH into that Linode server, and I can directly edit the files from VS Code if I'm able to SSH into that. And so if I need to run log files, for example, or tail log files and do things, it becomes very, very convenient. In this case, in my project, we have a staging server that has staging stuff, but it's set up like a development environment. And so, for example, when someone is doing UAT, we can actually tail the logs, and then if they see something like an error message, we can directly access the database, change things, even change the code and immediately restart the server. And the UAT person just, okay, please refresh your browser, and that's it.
Yeah. So
Jern is saying that Windows may be useful just to have a G drive client.
Actually, to me, it's a bit more useful than that because I hack embedded system out of boredom, and those tools occasionally are Windows. So that's one.
Yeah, most of the embedded stuff, their proprietary frameworks and their tools are actually Windows based.
Yeah. Then the only one Rise, not so much. I keep Windows mostly to give me an option to play games. So that's another one.
It's same. But it's not just games, but also many of the machine learning stuff runs better on Windows, I guess, because Windows just have better drivers, at least for NVIDIA. And so
it's the driver for machine learning. It depends. Put it this way. They got nicer driver nicer well-supported driver, but you want to run CUDA and all that is better supported on Linux. Especially you want to do things like, let's say you want to do Docker on NVIDIA. The only way for you to run it is on Linux actually. That's the only way for you to do that. But on Windows, you get things like Low AI. Low AI is interesting actually, and this is only a Mac and Windows thing. It's not on Linux, so
as you can see here, I just
a bit larger
updated. No, it's fine. I'm not showing what's inside, but I just updated VS Code through like Scoop update something. So it's very. I tried it. I like it because it's very similar to how I would do things with an Ubuntu machine. Like I do apt-get update and apt-get install or something like that, and then that's it. That's everything is fine. And of course, you have your extensions and all of these things. So it's quite good. it allows me to use the Windows drivers and the Windows stuff. Like just hardware is just easier to work with in Windows, just because there's a lot more people using Windows, not for development, but for like general work or like there's a lot of Windows machines out there, and so this is how I adapt the thing. And of course, if I want to update everything, I can update everything. It's just going to update all of the things, and then I just run this like once a week or something like that. Yeah, so that's how I do it. So during saying G Drive, I actually prefer Dropbox, but I'm not sure what you use G Drive for. But yeah, so apparently I only have like one updated app, which is hardware info.
Yeah.
That's it for my my setup.
Yes. So it's very different. So one more hack that I hope to show. I wonder if I can show this. Do you know SysInternals? I keep happening.
I do, yeah.
So that's actually one of the earlier things that I installed actually.
But I feel that's like a
advanced
those
tools.
are like a set of programs, because Windows just doesn't have a lot of good tools for it.
Yeah, because which goes to my point. One of the things and one of the biggest complaints for developers about
Let me install SysInternals.
About Windows is you don't get power tools by default. You don't get powerful tools by default, whereas on Linux or even on Apple somewhat, but on Windows it's especially hard because on iOS, if you need it, you have homebrew to support it. For a while, Windows don't have this kind of support, so that's the main one. That's the first one. And second one, the support is different because it's not Unix, so the support is different. So as a result, you don't get powerful tools by default, unlike the Unix. So that's actually one of the biggest complaints of Windows. Now it's beginning to be easier, but it's still not there. But if you use your operating system as consumer, yes. But if you're like me, well, I just know how to be productive on the Windows system because that's what I have. But yeah,
for example, this one is the process monitor. This is generally what you would see if you do a PS ops. I don't know how to make it larger, but that's how it is. You'll see, like, if you do the let me just go a task manager instance. If you do this is very different from what you see here because you have a lot more information. What is the registration entry here? What's the actual what do you call this? Like the actual path of the running binary, or where did it start? All of the types of processes that there are here. It's not even everything. So yeah, this is one of the things that I like about process monitor, which is again from SysInternals. It's a set of a lot of utilities.
Yes.
If you haven't used SysInternals before, I don't know where to download it because I just use Scoop. It doesn't really say where it is, but I guess Googling it is fine.
It's actually on GitHub nowadays. It's on Microsoft GitHub. So Microsoft bought the company that makes SysInternals, and the company actually do security, long story. Then Microsoft decided that what the hell and release it on GitHub or something.
Did you want to show something on SysInternals? I already have it installed. So
what else? What else is a cool thing? I keep it just.
There's PowerToys.
Yeah, PowerToys.
If you haven't heard about PowerToys, let me install it again. So again, this is like what. Sorry, this is what I really like about package managers is that you just need to know the name. I don't have to go through the internet and search about this and then find out whether what I'm downloading is correct or not, like whether there's like it's the official site or not. I just trust one thing, which is the package manager, in this case Scoop, and then I just do Scoop install whatever. Yeah, so that's PowerToys. Let's see what can I do for PowerToys.
It's shortcode install PowerToys for me.
It says I need to install .NET Core. Well, I guess I have to install .NET Core.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's That's another thing. You have I think the latest one is color picker, like Microsoft sponsored thing. Stop scaring my screen.
I don't have time to show. Do you think? Can I switch it over? I want to show one last thing.
Sure.
Actually, I want to show two things. Two things I want to try actually. The first thing I want to try is actually the Windows Automate. This is actually the UI test automation, which you can use for testing. I think it's crashing because I screen sharing it. I call it testing create. So from here you can actually you can record flow and all that. So I'm looking forward to testing this actually. I don't remember how to do this.
What is this?
It's called Power Automate Desktop. It is actually to automate your Windows usage. I think I will close it. Let me share my whole screen. I have to which get weird again. My bad. So Power Automate. So as you can see, you can actually do something ready to automate. I'm trying my best to learn this because you can run your DOS, you can run your VB script, you can get screen resolution, you can do web automation, meaning you can fill in a form. You can automate all sorts of stuff, extract image from PDF file. I don't know why, but it's interesting. So this is something I want to test. It's called Power Automate Desktop. So that's the first thing I want to. Next thing I want to test on my free time. This is a Windows only thing. Potentially powerful. Very early in this. It's a different paradigm of automation because this one is for you to set. This is actually UI automation. So it's not a shell command. It's not a shell script. Same idea, different level. Then another thing I want to test is actually Load AI. This one that promised to make machine learning training easier. I didn't put my cake and burger on it yet. It's something I want to do. Let me close this so that you can. Now you see my stuff. Let me see if I can switch. Yep, here you are. Log beta. You see Log AI running, right? Yep, it takes a while. And the cool thing is it doesn't require NVIDIA to run. And if you're on a Mac, you can play on Mac as well. This is released on Mac and Windows, but not on Linux. So this could take a while. Let me see if I can show the website. So Log AI. So what they promise is you can take you upload a photo and without code you can train a machine learning model. So this is the thing that I'm actually looking forward to. It looks interesting. So yeah, as long as I stop playing game, I should be able to do something on this. Also, they have a support for this head from Adafruit, but more on that later. So yeah, the two things that I want to play on my Unix, on my Windows, because there is quite a few things that's Windows only, believe it or not. Rather, if you don't want to use Mac, it's then on Windows. So yeah.
So before we go, let me just quickly show the PowerToys that we were talking about.
Yeah.
So this is like the Microsoft PowerToys. What I really like, so there's a lot of like things here. Again, the latest one is the color picker, but what I really use it more for is the image resizer. Let me see if it's actually going to. Well, I think I need to restart Windows to get it working right now. But what it does is it gives you if you right click on an image, it gives you a resize option, like to resize it to whatever things. So it's great when you're, for example, doing a screenshot. So I have a 4K monitor, and when you do a screenshot, it's like it's huge because the whole resolution is there, right? And so what I would do is I would right click and then resize it for like maybe a small one, and then because I generally don't need high fidelity, I just need to show like, okay, these are all of the UI elements for this particular page, and I put it on Slack, and I don't have to get everyone to download like a few megabytes of a file of a PNG just so that they can take a look at what I'm talking about. So yeah, so this is good. I haven't tried Power Rename. I feel this is useful. Like I can rename with regex probably. So I'm really, the renaming feature in Windows is very, very basic. You can only rename one file. You can't do a batch rename. The one in Mac and at least in GNOME is much better.
Yeah.
So hopefully this is fine.
Then another thing that I actually like of Windows is screenshot. Nowadays it's neat and something, but then I don't know. I find the Mac one is a bit basic, but they just neat. So I like the Windows screenshot. That is awesome. That is the best for screenshotting on an operating system.
Yeah.
Just that.
So for the workflow that I have, I've been trying this out for a few years now. And what I really like about the VM workflow is that I can move the VM around my different machines whenever I upgrade or change like computers. I just need to copy the machine over to a different machine, and that's it. Like everything is there, all my files, all my settings, all my configuration is the same. And I don't even need to like copy things over, like copy individual things over. I just copy the whole disk basically as the image. And it's just and if I need it like twice on a different machine, right, I just duplicate it and it's still running. I just need to adjust the IP addresses. So it's very convenient for just continuity purposes.
Actually, and that's the promise of VM. When virtualization technology have been boosted up because of Zen and all that, is there's a promise that you can bring in you can move your machine around for enterprise purposes or even that's the promise. And that's what you can do nowadays. Just that I just choose another part. So nowadays it's not too bad. The development environment on Windows are not as bad as people say. It's not 100% perfect. So for example, Poetry should run on my machine, but it don't run as well. Another one is Silverless doesn't work as well either because it get a bit weird. But it's there. It's getting there. It's not too bad nowadays, and it get really interesting. I hope to see how things work in the future. So
yeah. Do we have any more questions on chat? I guess not.
No.
John says he's jumping to the next call, so telling us to keep safe. I am going to try out IDSQL. It might be an interesting way to take a look at the database. I usually will just run the native client, the Postgresql client, or the MySQL client, but pointing and clicking is sometimes just easier.
It depends. Depends on my thing. So if I need to, I can move both ways, like just a meeting. So
okay.
So if that's it, I will update the notes. I'll update the notes so that you know what we're talking about. And I think that's all. I'm looking for Tuesday next week. So if you know somebody that want to come for interview for us, we'll figure it out from there. So that's it.
What do you mean interview?
I don't have anyone to interview, but if you know anybody that wants to bring them in, bring to us, I figure out from there. So and that's it. I think we should say goodbye.
Yes, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, thumbs up, or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what they do on Twitch though. What do they do on Twitch? I don't know. Anyway,
Oh. So with that
bye.
said,
See you next week.
yes.